Hello and welcome to That Nerd Thing, where we uncover the magical impact that fandoms have on our lives. I'm Morgan, and today I am joined by a very special guest, the co-host of Long Live Taylor podcast, and my niece, Kaylan. Hi, Kaylan.
Hi, I've been trying not to laugh this whole time.
That's so funny. That's so funny. So today is going to be an extra fun special episode. I have no script. I kind of like those episodes where, I don't have to do a lot of the planning ahead of time. Kaylan's going to be interviewing me rather than me being the one asking the questions this episode. And I have no idea what she's come up with. And I am so excited because this week I wanted to kind of give an overview of who I am, what my nerdiness is about, what, this podcast is about, and give a behind the scenes look into that nerd thing. And I am so excited that Kaylan is here to do that with me today.
I'm so excited to be here. I feel a lot of pressure to get this amazing episode out for you, but we're going to do it.
Yes. So we are recording on June 15th, and this episode is going to come out on June 17th. So we'll see, how it goes in terms of editing. So I guess let's jump in.
Okay. So I was going to have Chat GPT, however you say it, make me a beautiful intro about you. But I ran out of credits, which I didn't even know that was a thing. I guess I've been using it too much. But basically, I'll just summarize what I wanted the intro to say. Morgan, you are the nerdiest person I've ever known. And I feel like Morgan's been a nerd since she was a little kid. Also, I'm so scared right now. I feel like you're going to take half this out, but whatever. Okay, Morgan's the nerdiest person I know. So I wrote down some memories I have.
Oh my gosh.
First nerdy memory. When we were younger, she used to stick me under the sink, like the cabinet of the sink, and say, okay, when you come out, you're in a different time zone or whatever it's called. Dimension. And no one can see you. And she got the whole family to play along with it. And I believed it. I'm like, I'm invisible. I'm in this new dimension. No one can see me. And then she would stick me back under the cabinet. And then I would come back to real life. She also was always reading. I remember you're the one who introduced me to midnight parties. So I remember going to movies, midnight premieres, and book premieres and being like, what kind of weird things am I in right now? But it was really fun.
Oh, those were so fun. I miss the midnight release parties.
Yeah. I feel like you're just nerdy all around. Like you were always reading. You kind of taught me a little bit about how to read. When we would have our laser tag parties, you were so into it. When we would go to Universal, you're pretend all of this is real. We're in these rides, and I still do that to this day.
It's so fun doing it that way.
Yeah, we can get more into this later, but you throw your murder mystery parties for the family. I just feel like it's incorporated into your being. You're just a nerd.
Oh my gosh, I want to cry with you saying all of this.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's so cool that you're able to see that that's part of who I am, and I'm just a really proud nerd.
Yeah, no, it definitely is who you are. Even whenever I'm talking about you to my friends or dates or whoever, I'm yeah, my aunt's a nerd, blah, blah, blah. She loves Harry Potter, she loves this, she loves that. But it's so fun. When I think about my childhood and stuff, I'm wow, a lot of this centered around you being a nerd.
That's so fascinating. That's so cool. And for those who don't know, Kaylan and I are pretty close in age. We're just a few years apart. So we're I'm not that, never mind.
You're not an old aunt. Who, whenever I tell people oh, my aunt this, my aunt that, they're okay, that's kind of weird because they're thinking she's 30 years older than me. I'm she's 5 years older than me. So it's not weird, trust me. Okay, so anyway, I guess I did a better job of that than Chat GPT could have. But yeah. I was literally going to put in Chat GPT, make me an intro for a nerd podcast, and this is everything nerdy she's ever done. And I had a list of all the nerdy things written out. And it was going to give me a funny intro about you.
And you ran out of credits.
Yeah.
Because I creative yourself.
Well, I Chat GPT everything. I'm what should I text this person? How should I phrase this email? So it's no wonder I ran out of credits. It's souring our brains. Anyway. Okay, Morgan, you're going to hate me in the editing process, but I have over 30 questions lined up for you. And they're not really in chronological order either. That's the sad part.
That's fine. Let's go for it.
So the first question, I feel like you've kind of answered this before, but to anyone who's listening for the first time, what inspired... Okay, the first 10 questions did come from ChatGPT, I'll take. That was before it ran out of my credits. Okay, but the first question... So they get juicier as it goes along because then they come for me. What inspired you to start a podcast about nerdy topics?
So for those who don't know, outside of this podcast, I am a psychologist. And for the past few years, I've been really involved in the online business world. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm like on an interview, like job interview right now.
That's what people say when I'm on dates with them. They say it sounds like I'm interviewing them for a job. I'm like, well, you are being interviewed for the job of my boyfriend, but okay.
All right, so I'm getting interviewed as the job as a podcast host.
Yes.
Okay, so I have always been a nerd, and I realized I was getting bored with some of the online business stuff I was doing because I wasn't just doing therapy. I also was doing some courses and workshops, and that's the stuff that I was like, you know what, this isn't that fulfilling. And so I was already hesitant about it. I was like, I wish I could do something about like nerdy stuff. And, I never really thought much more about it. And then, both of us, we faced a pretty significant loss in our lives. And it kind of like turned all of our worlds upside down dealing with that. And one of the ways that I got like through all like that time was really diving back into books and nerdiness. And then one of my friends, Tamara, she did the last interview of me on this podcast. I was like, what should I do? Like, what sort of things should I do about nerdiness? And she's like, you should do a podcast. And I said no, because I have really high standards for podcasts because I've been listening to podcasts for like almost 20 years at this point. And I was like, there's no way I could do a podcast like Andrew from MuggleCast or Millennial or all that. I was like, if I do a podcast, it has to be like of high quality. But then I couldn't get the idea out of my head. And so I consulted with Andrew. I consulted with Nicole from Fantasy Fangirls. And I just created this podcast where I interview people about the things that they love.
So how far from when you said, like, yes, I'm going to do this, like, how long did it take you to then get your first episode launched? Like, how long was the process?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I think it was in probably November of 2023 where I was really thinking, okay, it's time to get this podcast done. And so from November to the end of December, I did all of the planning. And then my first episode launched, I believe, the first week in January.
Amazing. And it's a lot of work that goes into it because we started our podcast around the same time. And I feel like you were the one leading the charge because there's so much stuff you don't realize that goes on to creating a podcast.
Oh my God, there's so many little details. And I definitely need to give credit to Nicole and Andrew for helping me through all of that and figuring out how to do it.
Wasn't there a point also where you wanted to make this instead of a podcast, some kind of like online interactive like course or book, or wasn't there something there too you considered?
Yeah. I was considering doing almost like a bundle where it would be like something that people can purchase and they would have access to a bunch of courses and products on how to embrace your nerdiness, because that's kind of what was done in the online business world. But then I was like, I don't know, it doesn't feel right, and stuff like that doesn't really exist. So then I decided the podcast was the way to go.
You didn't want to exploit the nerds.
Oh my God, yes. I didn't want to say that because I probably have people from the online business world listening, but it does feel like that. It feels like a lot of that world is just exploiting other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't want to do that.
I'm asking you questions, you're like going to have to edit out half of them. Okay, I love that answer. So question number 2, I made up this one. Have you ever been bullied for being a nerd? And like share the actual bullying experience. Like tell us who did it, what happened, like give us the lowdown.
So I Kaylan, I remember one time in middle school where I wasn't invited to somebody's birthday party who I was actually pretty good friends with, and somebody else who went to that party was talking to me about it, and I can't remember how I found out, but basically I found out that they were talking about me, and the reason I wasn't invited was because I was that weird Harry Potter nerd. And I know, right? And I don't remember being upset about them calling me a nerd. I was just more upset about the fact that they used that as a reason not to invite me. And to this day, I still remember in high school, later on, a few years later, when they announced the Harry Potter theme park. And I was like, you know, I'm such a nerd that they made a theme park out of it, because they were all like, Harry Potter's not going to last forever, whatever. And I'm like, well, look at it now.
Vindication.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the lesson from that story that you want to share? Is there a lesson? You're a therapist, like...
I guess what I really got from that was the right people are the ones who embrace who you are. And if people don't embrace your nerdiness, they don't need to be the people you have in your life. And I was okay with that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me, okay, you're making this podcast, so tell us about the process, like from the beginning. Like, how did you sit down? And I feel like you have this brand new podcast. It centers around having a guest basically every week. How did you start with like no credibility in the nerd podcast world? How did you start getting people interested?
Yeah, that was something I was really nervous about in the beginning. Like, how do I get people who actually want to be on the show when they don't know me? And fortunately, I was so happy that Andrew and Nicole immediately said yes. They were like dream guests to have on this podcast, because they have these amazing podcasts that they've been running for so long. And so from there, well, what I did is, before I officially started, I made sure I had at least 5 guests lined up. So I reached out to people. I just reached out to people that I knew, and I was like, hey, I'm starting this podcast. This is the purpose of it. I would really love to have you on. And I'm very intentional about who I ask on, because I don't want to just ask anybody, because there are a lot of things that people can be nerdy about. But if I don't have even a little bit of interest in it, then it's going to be hard for me to show that enthusiasm. So I'm really careful about who I have on the show to make sure it's a topic that I am comfortable talking about. So I just reached out to people. And then from there, you know, after the first few episodes were recorded, I started panicking. I'm like, I don't have guests lined up. What do I do? And then I just kept reaching out to people. And it's been amazing, because guests that I've had on this show have then connected me to other people in their lives that they think would be good guests. And so it kind of like spiraled up from there. And then I just, like, I have no shame. If I want somebody on my show, I will just reach out. Like, of course I don't want them to say no, but I'm not afraid to just reach out and ask. And so that's pretty much what I do. And it's been so amazing to me that people see that and they're like, yeah, that sounds like so much fun. Let's book an episode.
So how are you not scared of reaching out to people? Like, you've reached out to pretty big names, like really big names. Like, where does that come from?
You know, it's kind of funny. I was like thinking in terms of Harry Potter, I've always sort of been a Hufflepuff, and doing this podcast, I'm like, I feel like I'm entering my Slytherin era, because I just like, I'll do whatever for the podcast. I'll reach out to people. I don't know. I just don't have that fear, because, you know, I also believe in this show so much, and I think it's so much fun, and it is different from typical podcasts, and I'm just like, of course, why wouldn't you want to be on my show?
I feel like you also got that from Mama, your mom. Like, she'd be like, just ask, like, go do this, go do that. Like, who cares? Blah, 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 blah. Like, so you just have that in you. You're not afraid.
I mean, I agree. I definitely get disappointed if I get told no or ignored, but I don't let that stop me from asking.
Yeah. Is there anything in any episodes you've left out that you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have left this out? Or maybe you could do like an episode of like bloopers or things that got left behind in episodes. Have you ever thought about that?
Oh, that's such a good question. You know, I typically don't. The only things I really cut out are, you know, if we start going off topic about something personal or just, you know, little editing things. But there was one thing that I cut out that if I could go back and edit it again, I would put it back in. And it was with my episode with Laura T from MuggleCast and Millennial. And I think I was just still so early on that I was like, oh, I don't know how people will view this if they listen to it. But we were talking about our love for Green Day. And I was telling her how I went to a concert years ago, and I was just so excited. I had not floor seats, but like front row seats, so like I could make eye contact with all of them. And I remember I was like just screaming, making eye contact with Billy Joe Armstrong, and he had a water gun. And I remember he looked me in the eyes and he shot me with the water gun. And I was just so excited. And I told that story, and I cut that out of the episode.
Why'd you cut it out?
I was like, I don't know. Maybe I was shy at that point because it was still early on in recording. And because I am a therapist, in the beginning, I was really trying to think, like, how do I navigate being a therapist and having a podcast? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And So it's like, you know what, if I'm hesitating, let me take it out. I'd rather do that than regret having it in. But I think now, as I've become more comfortable with the idea that my therapy clients might find this podcast and might listen to it, and that's okay because I'm a human too, I would probably put that back in.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions based off of that. So
Okay.
you were speaking about therapy. So one of my questions I actually had was, I feel like listening to this show, you can tell you're a therapist a lot. Like, the questions you ask are really insightful. I don't know. Maybe I just know that because I'm biased. So I feel like your therapist identity is definitely incorporated into the show. But does your nerdy identity ever get incorporated into therapy?
Oh my God, that is such a good question. So therapy is not when I'm like with my clients, therapy is not about me. It's about them. And so I don't really I don't talk about myself in that way. Sometimes, if a client brings up something that they're interested in, they're like, oh, have you heard of this or have you seen it? I'll be like, oh yeah. And sometimes if it's something I'm a fan of, I'll be like, oh yeah, I love that. But it really doesn't go far beyond that. But I think my nerdiness does play out in a way that I understand maybe a lot of the things that some of my clients might bring up related to the nerdy world. Like, they don't have to maybe teach me about some of it because I get it.
Yeah. So nerds who need therapy should go to you.
This is not an
advertisement.
Not an advertisement. This is not a therapy podcast.
I'm trying to get you more business, Morgan. Like, come on. So you can buy more ads for this podcast. See, it's all a business plan. So my second question off of what you said, though, so you mentioned Laura from Mugglecast. So you've got to interview people like Andrew, Laura, Pam, who you've listened to for forever. What has that been like?
Oh my God. And then I get to go on their podcast too, which is a dream, but it's so crazy because I started listening to them when I was probably around 13 years old. I've listened to all their podcasts throughout the years, and I just remember listening to them thinking, these are amazing people. I want to be friends with them. I want to know them. But it just felt like they were celebrities in my mind. I was more of a fan of all of them than I was of like the author of the Harry Potter books, to be honest. Like, I just really loved them so much. I connected with them. They opened up my eyes to this whole online nerd community. And so being able to interview them was so surreal for me. I remember, like, for each of them, before I pressed the record button, I was like, how do I do this? I'm the one listening to you. How do I introduce you on a podcast? And they have just been, all of them, so amazing and so supportive. And I like the fact that they were on the show. I just don't even have words. I'm so grateful for all of them. I said to all of them, you all have an open invitation to come on this show whenever you want.
Every episode.
It's so crazy to me that I'm talking to people that I never even thought I would talk to.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes when you do that, it kind of loses its magic, where the people say, like, don't meet your heroes. But I feel like they've all been so nice to you that I feel like it's made it even better. Do you feel that way?
Oh my God, they're so nice. They're so supportive. Like, it has not lost the magic. If anything, it's made it even more magical.
Yeah.
And like Andrew, sometimes I'll email him a quick question about the podcast, and he goes above and beyond with his answers to me. I'm like, you didn't have to give me all this information. It's just wonderful. They're all amazing.
Oh, I love that. It's been so awesome watching you like start this whole process and get into it and get all of these guests. And I remember, should we tell the story of when you had that like viral video on TikTok when, was it Nicole's video?
Yeah.
So, like the whole family's just rooting for you with this podcast. So Morgan was in, what were you watching? Some play?
I was in Hadestown in Fort Lauderdale.
With your husband. And then we were all on the family group chat, like 10,000 views. 10.1 thousand views, 10.2 thousand views, like freaking out. We're like, where is she? We need her to check this during intermission. Like, we're all freaking out. So funny.
I know, because that was the first clip on TikTok, and it's really the only clip so far that has gotten that many views. I just remember thinking, what is even happening right now? Am I going viral? Like, this is crazy. And it was all about Nicole talking about how smut is just amazing for her relationship.
Yeah. I've learned so many things through your podcast. Like, I had no idea what smut was. I had no idea what fan fiction was. Like,
really?
Yes. Like, when I'm a nerd, I'm nerdy about like one thing only: Taylor Swift. everything else I don't know about. So I was like, wow, I've learned, this is such an educational podcast.
So what is it like for you to listen to the show when, like, because you really, if you didn't know me, you probably would have never started listening to the podcast. But
No.
what is it like for you to listen to it?
I love it.
No,
So
no
like
way.
I use it for two purposes. Sometimes like it gets me in a very relaxed mood to go to sleep because it's very lighthearted.
Wow, okay. I bore you to sleep. Good to know.
No, like I need peaceful things
kidding.
to get me to sleep. So like it's good. It's lighthearted. But other times, like one time I was listening to it and I just got so excited I ran to the bookstore and I just started buying all these books. Like it makes me, or like it motivates me to start writing music. Like it just, every
I love that.
episode gives me inspiration to like just go full in on things that I already love. So I'm not necessarily like, oh, now I watched a Star Wars episode, now I'm gonna go watch Star Wars. But every episode just like reinvigorates my own passions. Like seeing other people talk about theirs, I'm like, oh wait, I feel this way about this. And then it just like, it's like a motivator.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
you texted. That was after the episode with She Be Reading Them Books, Alyssa. Yeah, she's a book talk influencer. She was great.
Yeah, and she had that whole bookshelf of books in the background, and I was just like, I need to go touch a book right now, and that's why I went to the store. So what was the biggest challenge? Like, what was the hardest part about getting the podcast started?
Not feeling solid on an idea. And I was worried. I was like, okay, because everybody who I have on is going to be interested in different things, are people going to want to listen and then continue listening, or are they only going to listen to the episode with the topic that they love? And so I was really worried about that. And so that's why the show is less about the specific fandoms and more about how the fandoms have impacted us, and more about the stories of nerds in general. And I'm just so happy like that it inspires you to follow your own passion, because that's exactly what I want. I want people to listen to this and feel like they can embrace their nerdiness in whatever way it is, like whatever that means to them.
Yeah. No, I think that accomplishes it because it's cool hearing people's stories too. Like learning about these people, and everyone you've had on is so cool. It's like they have so many like layers to them that it's fun to learn about them.
Totally.
Okay, can you share a memorable experience or a moment you've had while recording the podcast?
Is that from ChatGPT?
Yes. You could tell which ones are from chat and which ones are from me.
Memorable. Let's see. There's so many. I guess one really funny one that actually did shock me in the moment was Erin. She, works as in the book publishing industry as an editor. And we were talking about Neopets. And she pulled up my old Neopets information, my account page from when I was like 7 years old. And she's like reading me my username that's like Animal Freak, and that I put my name as Morgan Potter because at that point, I was a Harry Potter fan, and I genuinely did not expect her to find that and to pull it up. And I remember thinking, this is hilarious. This episode is so fun. I really remember feeling like I was kind of like loosening up in that podcast episode.
Yeah. I remember when I was watching that episode and I heard that username, I'm like, oh, core memories unlocked. Like, I feel like I remember you using that name for things.
Yeah. And of course, one of the most groundbreaking moments in this podcast was when I got Nick Walker on. Mm-hmm. I still have no words for it. So he played Aaron Byrne Hamilton, and he was on my list in the beginning of somebody who would be a dream guest. But, kind of like a far-fetched, like, oh, that would be so cool, but who knows if he would ever be on. And then I posted on Threads, and he saw it, and I was like, oh, does anybody have a connection? And he's like, I know a guy. And I'm just like, I remember I was walking into therapy and my jaw dropped and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I even live? And then he was on the show and it was so much fun. And he wants to, like, he actively reached out to do another episode. So I'm going to plan that soon. Like that, like I am interviewing people that I'm fans of, and I get to talk about the things that I love with, like, and it's just like, what world is this right now? I'm just so, I can't believe people are saying yes to be on my show. Every time somebody says yes, I'm just like so grateful.
Yeah. And they're all so nice. Like, I remember watching that episode with Nick Walker, and I'm like, how kind is he? Like, nerds are so nice, I feel.
Nerds are definitely so nice, and everybody on the show has been so nice so far.
Yeah. Okay.
I've had 2 mean guests on.
Who? Oh, me and Leanna?
Yeah,
we
I'm kidding,
were
I'm kidding,
very
though.
nice.
I'm
Actually, I don't know if Leanna was. I'm just kidding.
yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Okay. In what ways do you think being part of a nerd culture has enriched your life?
Well, ChatGPT. So I think being part of nerd culture is just so amazing because you get to build connections with people. You get to talk about the things that you love, and it just sparks that creativity that I think is so important for all of us.
Yeah, that is a very chat GBT answer.
I was about to say, as I was answering it, I was thinking of that, Michael Scott from The Office, where he's like, sometimes I start a sentence, I have no idea where it's going, I have to see where it goes. Honestly, that's me most of the time.
That's funny. What is your earliest memory of being a nerd? Like, what's the earliest nerdy thing you've done that you remember?
The earliest nerdy thing. That's interesting because I've spoken about the first things I've been nerdy about, but the first time I remember actively like being a nerd. This is hard because I feel like it's just been part of my identity for so long.
Playing Office with us as kids. That was pretty nerdy.
That was pretty nerdy. That's true. That's true. Oh, you know what I did early on when I first was reading the Harry Potter books before the internet or before I knew about the internet really and was involved, I made my own Harry Potter textbooks. I would like draw pictures. I would title them based off of all of that. And yeah, I made my little Hogwarts textbooks. I wish I still had those.
I was going to say, do you have them? Didn't they have spells and stuff?
Probably. I drew a lot of things. I wrote stuff. I remember I hole punched them and I took yarn to tie it together and I made little textbooks. I wish I still had them.
I know. I remember those. That's so funny. So have you had through your podcast, have there been any new opportunities? I know you've gone on some other podcasts like you mentioned. What has that all been like?
Oh my God, that has been so cool. So I'm not like doing this podcast, I love interviewing people, but it's also so much fun for me to go on other people's podcasts because then I also don't have to worry about the whole editing process afterwards. I get to just go and have fun. But yeah, so I have been on so many at this point. I was on Millennial a few months ago. That was so much fun. I'm going to be on MuggleCast this recording this upcoming week, which I'm just so excited about. And then I was also on the Vigilante Vibes podcast to talk about my perception as a therapist of Daredevil. So having them on the show was so cool because I got to really, it got me interested in the Marvel universe and I've started watching stuff. So now I'm watching Jessica Jones and I'm going to go on their show and talk about that when I'm finished with it. So it's so much fun because not only am I getting to go on other shows and talk about things that I love, but I'm also learning about new nerdy things and getting to embrace all that and meeting new people. And I have a few other podcasts that I'm going to be guesting on over the next few months. And it's just, I'm really looking forward to it. It's so fun. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's so fun. So, okay, Morgan, like I said in the beginning, when I think of you, I think nerd. Have you ever considered writing a book, starting a movie? I don't know, just something creative where you can start your own fandom.
You know, I love the idea of that, and interviewing a lot of authors has definitely made me start thinking, like, I kind of want to be an author and write a book, but I just don't have a story in me yet. I'm sure it could potentially happen in the future, but I don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. I want to feel like it's natural.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to, but I just don't have that yet. I know it'd be so cool to have a fandom of my own.
I know. Okay, so where do you see your podcast heading into the future?
I guess I just want to keep being able to talk about the things I love and maybe forming some sort of online community and having a mix of episodes where I interview people and also a mix of episodes where we deep dive into topics that I love and shows and movies and books that I love, kind of like the Bridgerton episode that I did with Pam. And we're recording in a couple of days our reaction to part 2 from Bridgerton season 3, so that'll be fun. But like I want to be able to do episodes like that and interviews. I think a mix of that has been really fun.
I loved that episode because I love Bridgerton, and whenever I watch a show I usually go to TikTok after or Reddit to see what people are saying. But I liked being able to go to your guys' episode and see what you were saying and talking about. I felt like it was my first go-to. So I'm like, yes, more episodes like that. Like dissect every show that comes out. I would love it.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you said that. That would be fun, but it definitely is a lot more work to put on a podcast like that because, you watch it and you take notes and you have to be detailed. Whereas when I'm interviewing, I do some of my research, but then a lot of it is just like a natural conversation I try to have.
Yeah.
But those recap episodes are a lot of work. So if you listen to a podcast where somebody is doing that, like they might not let you know, but it is a lot of work behind the scenes to do a recap deep dive show.
Yeah.
So respect to all of those podcasters.
Yeah. Okay, do you have any favorite memories from midnight release parties?
So we've gone to the book midnight release parties and the movie midnight release parties. The book midnight release parties were they were so fun, but I also remember them being so stressful because I wanted to avoid spoilers. And I know that people had spoilers for especially like the Harry Potter books, and people would just go in and spoil things. And I'm like, that's so messed up. But I just remember how much fun it was to go to like these Barnes and Noble. That's where I would typically go. We would go, and then they would have everything themed, and I would dress up, and it was so much fun. And then the movie midnight release parties, that was back in the day before you could reserve your seats. So I remember having to get there hours early to wait online so we wouldn't get shitty seats.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And I'm like, these days, I'm like, midnight is so late. I want to go to bed.
Oh my goodness, she's aging.
I know, right?
Well, I had another question, but you're probably not going to want to put it on. So every episode you're like, yeah, I'm going to add that to my list, Do you really have a list?
I do have a list, and it's never ending, and I don't know if I'm ever going to get to it.
Because I feel like most people, like in everyday life, when someone recommends a movie or something, like, yeah, I'll add it to my list, and they never add it. So I'm like, does she really have a list?
That's so funny. I do, but I will say not everything is actually added to it, but I do have a list that I'm never going to get to. It's very, very long.
Okay. Have you gotten to anything on the list that anyone's recommended?
Yes. Very few, though.
That sounds like a lie, but okay.
No, a few things. Because, okay, it probably sounds like that because it was on my list before they recommended it. They just happened to recommend it, so it coincided with my list.
That makes sense. It's just like validation
Yeah.
that it should be high up on your list, though.
That's
so that's
true.
good.
Yeah, that's true. But there's only so much time, and there's so much I want to watch and read and listen to.
And you're
hard.
editing this podcast. You have a
know.
lot going on. You're in like 20 million book clubs. Like, I literally suggested to Morgan a few months ago to join a book club, and she is in like 20 of them now. And I'm like, how do you do this? And don't you lead your own book club?
I did, but I stopped that one because I couldn't manage all of it. I was like, I get the fulfillment of hosting something through my podcast rather than me hosting a book club. I'd rather just attend the book clubs and enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, I'm like, you really take everything to an extreme. Like, I just meant join one, like that meets every bi-weekly. And you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to join 10, and I'm going to do 10 Pilates classes, and I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to do this. I'm like, okay, overachiever. Okay, I want to play F, Marry, Kill.
All right.
Or should it be Kiss, Marry, Kill? What kind of audience do you have?
It's already going to be an explicit episode.
It is?
I think I said shitty.
Oh, okay. So F, Marry, Kill. This is Fandom edition. Star Wars, Harry Potter, Barbie. And I took a lot of these as from inspiration of things people have brought on in other episodes too, and things I know you like.
This is such a tough question. Okay. F, marry, kill. This is so difficult. Star Wars, Harry Potter, Barbie. And we're thinking about the fandoms.
Yes.
Like the people or just
no,
like...
the actual
Okay.
product. Like Harry Potter movie, Barbie movie, Star Wars movie. How you feel about it.
And the books for like Harry Potter? Like
Yeah.
the whole world?
Yeah.
Oh my
The
gosh, this
worlds.
is so tough. So I need to for sure not include the author here because if the author's included, then that could disappear. Okay, oh my gosh. This is so tough. Okay, well, honestly, this is really tough.
It only gets tougher, so.
Oh my gosh, F, marry, kill. So like what does that mean though in the context of
Like
fandoms?
killing, it's like you could live without it. Mary's
fandom,
like
okay.
you want it forever. F is like, it's like it's your scandalous rendezvous, but it's not something you want forever. It's like your guilty pleasure. I feel like I know yours already.
Wait, really? What do you think it is? Because
I think
don't
you
even
would
know
kill
mine.
Barbie, marry Harry Potter, and F Star Wars.
I was thinking F Star Wars because I'm
See?
like, there's like a darkness to Star Wars, but I'm not like a fan or anything. But I feel like that could be like a fun moment in time. And then Harry Potter fandom, I guess just because it's been a core part of my identity for so long.
You had a Harry Potter wedding. I wanted to mention that too. Like, talk about nerd. Your whole wedding was Harry Potter themed.
It was more about like if it was in the world of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Because like I don't want it to seem like a birthday, like a kid's birthday party. I want it to seem like it was a magical wedding. But yeah.
It was, but you entered through 9 3/4. I mean,
That's true.
there was a sorting hat on the table. Like, it was Harry Potter.
And then Barbie, how about instead of kill, we like elect Barbie as ruler of the world?
Oh my gosh. Okay, fine. You're changing the rules of the game, and it's only going to get harder from here.
Oh boy,
Okay. Harry Potter, Back to the Future, and ACOTAR, which I don't even still fully know what ACOTAR is, honestly.
A Court of Thorns and Roses?
A Court of Thorns and Roses. Yes.
So funny.
Yes. I watched Nicole's episode, but I was like, I'm still confused.
Yeah. Marry Back to the Future.
Okay.
F ACOTAR. Goodbye Harry Potter.
My goodness, I never expected this. Okay.
Scandalous.
Okay. Doctor Who, Bridgerton, Walking Dead.
Marry Doctor Who, F Bridgerton, kill Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I love this.
Everyone would F Bridgerton. I would marry Bridgerton. I'm just kidding. Okay. Twilight, Vampire Diaries, Pretty Little Liars.
I love this. You're bringing up things I've been fans of for years.
Yeah.
Okay. Twilight, Vampire Diaries, Pretty Little Liars. Okay. I'm going to have to kill Pretty Little Liars because I think they totally botched that ending and it could have been so good. Wait, what were Twilight and Vampire Diaries?
Yes.
Oh, this is tough. Marry Twilight, F Vampire Diaries.
Because of Damon?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
It's not F a character on the show, Morgan.
No.
It's
No.
F the
It's-
series.
because okay. F Vampire Diaries because it's much more violent and scary, and I don't know if I would want to be committed to that forever. Whereas Twilight is more like lighthearted. Kaylan, you're rolling your eyes. You're like, that's not the reason. But let's
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. Okay. Good cover up for your husband. I'm just kidding. Okay. So Neopets, Taylor Swift, Hamilton.
Oh man,
These were all based off your episodes.
I feel like my guests are gonna listen to this and be like, "You're gonna kill my fandom." I guess I'm gonna have to kill Neo. No, but they're Neopets. Oh, see, I get too into this. I'm like, but it's all the cute little Neopets. But I guess I'm not really involved in that fandom much anymore. So I guess bye Neopets. Marry Taylor Swift. F Hamilton.
You want to F
Yeah,
Hamilton? I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just sure. Oh, this is so tough because
I have so many more because I thought this
Maybe-
was funny.
I know this is a tough one. Listeners, please let me know your answers to all of these questions, by the way.
Okay. Wicked, Hamilton, or what is the Harry Potter show that was off Broadway that you loved?
Well, let's kill it off. And I didn't love it. Oh wait, no. I'm thinking you're making Potted Potter.
Yes.
I thought you were talking about Cursed Child for a second. I was like, you might not know what that is.
Potted
Don't
Potter.
worry. This is really hard. F Potted Potter. So I guess like it's funny. I pick like the F for like something that's like a scandalous fandom. I guess I've noticed I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Marry and kill Wicked or Hamilton. That is so tough. I mean, I guess kill Wicked.
Yeah. You
I just
have
love
to marry
Hamilton.
Hamilton. Yeah.
I do.
Okay, this is a good one for you. So marry F kill podcast, TV shows, and books.
Oh my gosh, this is tough. Okay, totally F books. Oh my gosh, kill off TV shows or podcasts. I guess I'll have to kill off TV shows because podcasts have opened up my eyes and world to the communities that are out there. And I definitely have to credit Mugglecast and Millennial for that, for being a part of my world for so long that they're amazing.
Oh, I love that. The Office, Marvel Universe, or Once Upon a Time.
Kill Once Upon a Time. I loved it when it was airing, but I kind of like, it hasn't held up in my heart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Marry The Office because it's my favorite show of all time that I've seen like over 10 times each, and then F the Marvel Universe.
Okay.
Because I love these superheroes.
Because the superheroes.
But like they would care about their cities more than they care about me.
Okay. Halloween Horror Nights, Disney, or Islands of Adventure?
Ooh, F Halloween Horror Nights, Merry Islands of Adventure, kill Disney. I haven't been to Disney in so long that I don't have the attachment to it right now.
Good. Okay, this I just wanted to say, but I didn't get to say it. In the words of Michael Scott, why are you the way you are? And then I wanted you to tell us about yourself.
Why am I the way that I am? Because I love stories, and I think stories in any form, whether you're listening, reading, watching, I love the power that stories have and how they really help us not just escape into and immerse ourselves into another world, but help us learn about ourselves. And I guess that's one thing that's so important to me on this podcast is not just to talk about the power that these stories and fandoms have had on our lives, but also I want to hear about the stories of nerds themselves and what their journeys have been like, because I think they're just so powerful.
Love that. Beautiful. We did ask some people on Instagram for some questions. So now we're going to get some questions from listeners. So the first question is, what is a fandom you've always wanted to get into, but you haven't yet?
I was thinking about this, and I think, it's less of a fandom, and I think it's more the idea of cosplay. I've always thought it was so cool, but I've just never felt like I had the creative skills to do that. But as I've been interviewing more cosplayers on the show, it's opening up my mind to potentially do that. So it's not necessarily a fandom, but it's more of like, I guess it is like the cosplay world. I think that would be kind of cool. And I don't know who I would cosplay as, but oh my gosh, that just reminded me for Halloween one year. Remember I dressed up as Edward Scissorhands?
Yes, and the waiter thought you were a man.
Yes, I did such a good job with that costume. That was so fun.
Yeah.
You know who I really want to dress up as one time?
Who?
Marty McFly from Back to the Future. I'm like, yes. I need to have a Back to the Future party or something so I could dress up.
I was
get the little vest.
I was gonna say you have like your list of dream guests, but how come no one from Back to the Future is on your list of dream guests?
Oh, someone from Back to the Future is. So if anybody here has a connection with anybody from Back to the Future, they are welcome on my show. Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. I love it. The connection between all the movies, the time travel. I love it so much. I love time travel. I mean, as you can see, because what we did as a kid is I kind of like put you under the sink to take you to another dimension, another time. I've always been fascinated by time travel.
Yes. Another question from another listener. How long does it take you to edit your podcast episodes?
Way too long. Oh my gosh, it takes me so long, and I'm becoming less of a perfectionist. It takes me at least 4 hours an episode, and my episodes are about an hour long, at least 4 hours. If I ever make money from this podcast, I'm hiring 2 people, a social media manager and an editor, because those are the things that take the most time that I'm not an expert in. This is the part that's fun, like doing the podcast, and actually I love interacting on social media. That's so much fun too.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, another listener question. What advice do you have for anyone wanting to start a podcast?
Make sure it's something that you would feel comfortable talking about and doing, even if nobody ever listens, so that you're doing it for yourself. Like, it's still wild to me when I get an email from someone or a comment or a DM of somebody listening saying they love the show. It's like, I can't believe people are actually listening and enjoying it. That, besides just my family. So yeah, that's my advice. Do it. Make sure it's something you actually want to talk about and that you would be happy doing if nobody ever were to listen.
Yeah. So we know David Tennant's a dream guest. What other dream guests do you have now that Nick Walker was fulfilled, he was fulfilled so fast, by the way, which is so cool.
I know. I still can't believe it. That was so good. I would love to have all of the MuggleCast hosts, the Fantasy Fangirls. I would love to have them back on, especially because I recorded with a lot of them as my earlier episodes, and I think now I might be a little bit more comfortable, and I kind of got my fangirling out, so I think it would be kind of fun to go back and interview them and chat with them in a different way. David Tennant, of course. I feel like it's becoming more about fandoms now. And I just would love to talk to somebody from Jonathan Bailey from Bridgerton.
Who's Jonathan Bailey? Who does
Anthony.
He play? Oh, yes.
Anthony, of course.
Your favorite.
Yeah. The Office. I mean, imagine if I had Steve Carell on. That would be a dream.
Imagine
or Mindy
if you
Kaling.
had John Krasinski or whatever his name is.
Yeah, or Rainn Wilson. I mean, I pretty much just want to talk to people, whatever role they played in the fandoms that I love. Like Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future. who knows if that would be a real dream. The Office, Bridgerton, Doctor Who, just all of these fandoms.
Okay, Morgan, I have another question for you. This was not Chat GPT.
Okay.
Do you be real for now? Like, be real. This is me.
Okay.
Do you still have a crush on Andrew from Mugglecast? Because I think you do.
Oh my gosh. You know what it is? I think now it's transformed to me wanting to be like best friends with him. And wanting, like, he followed me. You don't believe me.
Mm-hmm. You want to
so
be
funny.
best friends with him. That's so funny. When I was listening to the episode, I'm like, okay, used to have a crush. Got it.
Oh,
But then when I was listening to Chloe's episode, she's like, oh, you're not alone. Everyone loves him. Like, everyone had a crush on him. Yeah.
because he's so nice and he's so real. And a lot of us have listened to him for like 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like this podcast has been fulfilling in your life?
Oh my God, so fulfilling, because I still just can't believe I'm talking about things I'm nerdy about. I'm getting to meet people who I thought I would never meet. I'm getting to learn about them and hear their stories. I'm getting inspired to follow my own passions outside of the podcast, reading more books, watching more movies. And I'm engaging in this stuff in a different way. I'm not just passively watching these things. I'm actively engaging and I'm thinking through them and the stories and the meaning. And I think a lot of it is because of this podcast. And then going on other podcasts, I feel like I'm just repeating myself at this point, but it's so fulfilling to talk about the things I love with other really amazing people and meeting all of these other people and forming these connections. It's so fun. It's so fun. I love it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So I remember a funny memory before you did your first episode interview, I think. You were texting the group chat. You're like, I just meditated to Back to the Future music before this episode so I can get into the zone. And I was like, this is so funny. Is there any other like routines or rituals or things you do to prepare and like get in the nerdy zone before your episodes?
I typically try to listen to music from either like the person I'm interviewing or something related to the fandom to try to like get me into a zone.
I love that. Have you felt like your life has gotten better since starting this podcast? Like, have you noticed other areas of your life have improved, like your well-being and things like that?
Oh yeah, I'm just so much more motivated and inspired in general. And I think when I'm doing things outside of the podcast, I'm more engaged in those. And I think because I feel so fulfilled here that it just leaks out everywhere.
Yeah. And I feel like people think burnout is if you're doing too many things, but I feel like it's not doing enough of the things you like. And I feel like you've just been more passionate. Like, you're obviously spending more hours editing, getting guests, recruiting, like, but you seem more fulfilled and energized, I feel.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's so fun.
Who do you think is like the perfect person? Who do you want to be listening to your podcast?
I think people who are curious about other people and stories and who are curious about learning about fandoms and that world and just hearing conversations. I really think if you have that curious nature, then this podcast is for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And then going back to the beginning of the interview, what would you say to your little 6th grade nerdy self about having this podcast now?
Oh my God, that is going to make me cry. It's so crazy because like I was starting to listen to podcasts like Mugglecast then and to like I'm doing one. This is wild. I guess I would just tell myself to keep being nerdy. Don't stop. Keep embracing things.
And that party wasn't that fun anyway, I bet.
Probably not.
It really didn't scar you that bad because clearly you're still nerdy as can be.
Yeah, I don't think I ever stopped letting myself be nerdy.
Yeah, I don't think you did either. It's funny because when I asked you about being bullied, I thought you were going to say from your sisters.
Oh, that's so funny. I think it'd be cool one day to have a podcast with them on talking about all the 80s hair bands that they love.
Yeah, but you're going to have a lot of editing to do. We learned that the hard way when they were on our podcast.
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, now I feel terrible. One of my favorite memories was going on your podcast.
I forgot you were even on. No, we bullied you on our podcast. I'm surprised. Like, I'm not surprised it wasn't one of your favorites. We were like, how do you not know this song? Come on, we have a concert to go to.
No, that was fun, and I'm excited to be on another episode, even though you guys are avoiding me every time I ask if I could be on one. I'm like, what is this about?
No, I'm just kidding. You can be on one. So I have some final questions, and my cat has joined us.
Hello, Ross. He's so cute.
So, what is the best way listeners can support you and help you through your podcast journey?
Yeah, the show, the guests have been amazing, but the listeners have been beyond amazing as well. Like the fact that people are listening still is like, I can't believe people are listening and they want to continue listening, and like, it's so amazing. But I mean, the best way to support the show is to listen to it and to share it with people in your lives. It really means so much to me. And also, you know, leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really does help. And a written review. Like those numbers really help with the algorithm of like these podcast platforms showing the podcast to other people. So really just listening, sharing, leaving reviews, all of that helps so much. And then interacting with me on social media. That gives me a little boost of excitement.
Yeah, she loves that. Plug your social media. What's your social media?
So you could find the show on all social media at That Nerd Thing Pod. And you can email me at thatnerdthingpod@gmail.com.
Cool. If you had one word to describe your podcast journey and this whole experience, what would it be?
Emotional, invigorating, gratitude, creative, like just all of those things I think encapsulate, is that the right word?
Encapsulates.
Yeah. What this show has meant to me. And sentimental. There we go. That'll be my one word, sentimental.
What about magical?
Oh my God, that would have been perfect.
That keeps all of them into one. Like you could
You're
just,
right.
magical has all of them.
That would have been perfect. Yes, magical. Magical, magical, magical.
Amazing. Well, Morgan, it's been amazing listening to your podcast. Like I said, it really inspires me, and I'm sure it inspires so many people. It's so cool, like, seeing you do this. Now I'm getting emotional. It's so cool seeing you, like, take a hardship and turn it into a passion and just, like, bring inspiration to so many people. So thanks for letting me interview you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for interviewing me. And everybody, definitely check out Kaylan's podcast that she does with Leanna, Long Live Taylor.
Thanks for the plug.
Well, thank you, Kaylan, for interviewing me. I'm going to have a lot of fun editing this in the next 48 hours. So, oh, Ross is waving by. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. And I hope you're able to go back and listen to some other episodes and get inspired and find some new fandoms that you want to check out. This has been so much fun. And thank you again, Kaylan, for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Cue the music.